Today we're going to be talking about consumers in the global economy. What this presentation is going to talk about is the objectives of the lesson, the essential questions, and consumer buying decisions. First of all, we're going to discuss what's the big idea? What is the essential question? What are we going to learn by the end of this whole unit? What we're going to learn is why is it important for consumers to have rights and have those rights protected. The objectives of the lesson is we're going to research and debate the need for consumers' information to be relevant in today's global economy. This is a really interesting concept, and this is what I want you to do throughout the whole presentation, is I want you to take notes. So please take out a piece of paper and write down things that you think are relevant. Throughout the presentation, I'm going to be asking you questions, and the requirement, which is a graded requirement, is that you are going to have to answer the questions that are asked and turn them in at the end of the presentation. So, the first question that we're going to write down in our notes is, do we as consumers have the power to decide what to buy or what not to buy? Did you answer the question? Of course you did. You are very, very smart. Yes, we do have the power to decide what to buy or not, what not to buy. Remember back in the marketing chapter? Doesn't that sound familiar? Marketers were trying to figure out, God, how do consumers make decisions? How do they decide to buy my product? And what can I do to get them to buy my product? Now this is going to focus on you as the consumer and the decisions that you make when you go to buy something. The next question I'd like you to answer in your notes is, do businesses, in order to make money, have to be able to serve and meet the needs of the customers? What do you think? I really like this question too. So what if businesses didn't satisfy consumers? What do you think would happen? You're right. Look at the millionaire. Someone having little to no money. That's what businesses would have. They would not survive. We've talked about this before. Businesses would not be able to make sales, earn profits, or remain in business if they did not satisfy the consumer. Last time we were talking about the marketing piece of the consumer buying decision. Now I want you to put on your consumer hat. If you needed help making a decision on what to purchase, so let's say you were trying to decide whether to purchase an Apple iPhone or a Samsung. Where would you go to look up information on the products? Do we as consumers only have the option of listening to ads on television and taking that information to make our decision? No. There are, and I want you to put this in your notes. As you can see, there are our asterisks, so this is something that has to go in your notes. So, what are sources of information available to consumers to help them with their buying decisions? There's quite a few. Now we're going to talk about consumer information sources. Where do we get it? Where do we get this stuff? There are product testing organizations. Has any of you ever seen this symbol before on anything? What the UL symbol is it's a product testing organization that tests products and services for the benefits of consumers. Manufacturers pay these organizations to perform safety tests on their products. Again, do we need to take notes on this? The answer is yes. Now, the UL symbol, as seen on this example of a label, is Underwriters Laboratories. If you look at something electrical or a component of an electrical product, this company will test it. And this information, this symbol, means that the product has been tested and judged and safe for normal use. So go home and see if you can find something with the UL symbol on it. Since we just learned about the UL and that seal of approval that shows that those electronics are safe, do you think there are other organizations? Of course there are. The AHAM develops and maintains performance standards for such appliances as refrigerators, air conditioners, and freezers. Consumer Reports is the next information source available to us. Consumer Reports is a magazine that is published. Has anyone ever heard of Consumer Reports? Read a Consumer Reports? As you can see, why don't you list some of the things in your notes of the most reliable brands that they're showing on the cover of the magazine? Now, Consumer Reports. The Consumers Union does this, and they report on scientific, technical, and educational information about products and services. This is non-profit. Why is this important? That means somebody can't pay them to have the results in the company's favor. They perform independent tests on consumer goods, and it publishes it in the magazine called Consumer Reports. Did you guess it yet? Yep, you're right. Newspapers, radio, television. That's another place where consumers can get their information. You can listen to different things. Is there another medium other than radio, television, newspapers where we go to get our information and we look stuff up? What is that called? I think it is. You're exactly right. It's the internet. The internet is a huge source of information for everyone. Okay, so let's look at what we've done so far. We've talked about product testing organizations. We've talked about media sources, newspapers, television, the internet, and now we're going to talk about government agencies. Government agencies. Let's not do that. When you look at a government agency and you look at, I didn't want to do that either. You look at the internet. To know it's a government agency, it's going to have a .gov. Okay? A lot of government agencies have acronyms. So, we have the Federal Trade Commission, HUD, Equal Housing Opportunity, the Food and Drug Administration, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and the USDA, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Okay, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, where do you think that would go? You're exactly right. The USDA. The Consumer Product Safety Commission. Do you see one that would go there? All right, where do you want me to move this? Okay, goes right there. What about HUD? Housing and Urban Development. Does anything look like a house? Yes, there's HUD. What about the FDA? There's the Food and Drug Administration. And the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission. These are the symbols and the logos, if you will, of the different government agencies. And of course, everything has an acronym or an abbreviation. So, USDA stands for the United States Department of Agriculture. So what does it do? Again, here we are. We're seeing the asterisks. Please take notes. The USDA offers publication and online information about food buying, meal planning, and nutrition. As you can see, it also grades the meat. Have you ever seen this when you go into a store? In addition, let me ask you this. Have you been in a restaurant lately? When you go to McDonald's, have you noticed that they now list the calories or the nutritional value of the food that you order? What government agency do you think thought that that information was important for the consumer? So now they make that requirement. If you're going into a restaurant, Subway, McDonald's, Chili's, they have to post the calories and the nutritional value of the food. So what government agency takes care of that? Think about it. Think about it. Look in your notes and tell me. You're right. It's the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. Here is an example of an analysis based on one burger. So it tells you what it is. Like the Double Whopper has 1,061 calories and 68 grams of fat. How healthy is that? The government wanted us to know that if you're going to eat a Double Whopper, those are the calories you're ingesting. So they just wanted consumers, which goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about, to make a Have you ever looked at a label on a can of food or something that you bought in a grocery store to see if there's anything? How much protein's in there if you want to eat a protein bar, the calories, how much fat, sodium. This is another thing that the government has required, that if you're going to buy something, you should know what's in it. So, again, write this down in your notes. Why do you think that the USDA requires this type of information being available to consumers? I'm not going to answer this question in the next slide. This answer I'm going to ask you when you come to class. So now, the Food and Drug Administration. They deal with a lot of things that deal with health and human services. Food safety, tobacco, vaccines. That's really big in the news. Should you vaccinate your children? Medical devices, dietary supplements, cosmetics, medicine, animal foods. So the FDA is actually responsible for protecting public health. The next government agency is the Federal Trade Commission. They protect America's consumers. Look at that. They, and here's your asterisks, so please put these three things down in your notes. The Federal Trade Commission prevent business practices that are anti-competitive or deceptive or unfair to consumers. To enhance informed consumer choice and public understanding of the competitive process, and to accomplish this without unduly burdening legitimate business activity. So what does this mean? It means that one business can't control everything. That's called a monopoly. So the FTC does not think that that's fair, that one company can control one thing, because then they could set the price whatever way they wanted to. They also believe that we should be able as consumers make informed decisions. But they also think that this shouldn't impede the business practices. So if the businesses are ethical and the products are good, there shouldn't be any problem. But they're there to protect us. Now, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, they're charged with protecting the public from unreasonable risks of injury or death associated with the use of thousands of types of products. This is really interesting because it's a product safety commission. So they want to make sure that people are safe. But if there is a death or an injury or even property damage from a consumer products, then you know what? Should the businesses pay? What do you think? Well, that's what I was thinking. What happens? Let's say that somebody gets really hurt or dies from using a product. So I thought, what was the biggest legal case that this government agency has had? And I found it out in the research. And Baja Incorporated. If you read this yourself, which I want you to take a few minutes and read it, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. This is what I want you to look at. And you guys have probably, because you're a very smart class, know this. This is a big word. This company knowingly failed to report defects on the mini bikes. There were gas caps that could leak, throttle that could stick, acceleration hazard. So, are you kidding me? This isn't fair. So what they did is they agreed to pay this large civil penalty, not a criminal case. They were charged civilly, which means when a company is charged civilly and they lose the lawsuit, they have to pay up the money. And that's exactly what happened to Baja. So the biggest civil penalty right now is $4.3 million. This is what we're going to be doing in class tomorrow. I want you to think about what agency helps keep our food safe, and we're going to talk about some different things. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to bring your notes for class. Remember, the notes are a graded assignment.